Welcome to the cPacket Network's series of Andy and Iain Talk Networking. I am Andy.
I am Ian.
And we're going to talk to you about a whole range of different subjects over the coming weeks and months, and a lot of things about networking and networking technologies. And really, we're going to discuss how networks have evolved over the years and see how these changes have impacted our IT operations, network admins, and the capabilities to manage our network, over time, and do things like fault finding and resolving issues as things happen. So, Ian and I remember, from a long time ago, when I was left university, networks have changed a lot since then. I mean, networks were in the last 30 years completely different. So, how do you think networks have evolved?
Well, first thing is, Andy, I'm sure you weren't at university 30 years ago. That would make you about 200 years old or whatever it is. So anyway,
202, but
just
yeah.
saying, it's all good. No, networks have evolved hugely. And certainly my days at university, also 30 odd years ago, we were talking about, those dial-up modems. There was all of this kind of, the speeds were so much slower, so much less than we have today. So one of the biggest changes has been the level of performance, all the way from, kind of 100 kilobit networks or 56K or maybe 10 megabit Ethernet on some shared coax and all of those kinds of technologies that
Yeah.
many of us are probably reminiscing on, even listening to this little short video. But the spirit is it was performance all the way to 400, 800, possibly 1.6 terabits in the future, and your standard network now being 100 gig, something in that kind of range in many organizations. Even in my house, I have 1 gig to the house. I know a lot of people have even more than that. So I mean, it's really been a performance game. I think some of the other things that have changed, just in my own perspective, is how people perceive networking. As a computer
Yeah.
science graduate, it was very important. I was on the network, I was doing my projects and everything else. But, generally through the campus, computers were kind of a bonus. Yeah, I could come and write up my essays and all of those types of things. But over that time, we didn't have Amazon. We didn't have, all of these kinds of instantaneous. We certainly didn't have Facebook, X, any of the TikTok, any of these
Yeah.
kinds of things. So the point is the importance and the prevalence of technology, networking technology, is really important for people. And the idea that it is critical. There's a great slide I have in more of our standard decks where I talk about, the fact that a huge percentage of businesses are now networking is critical to their
Yeah.
success. It's not just glue that, well, if it works, great. If it doesn't work, we'll fix it later. It's vitally important if
Yeah.
it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm sure there's probably other things, Andy, but kind of
Yeah.
performance and then the perception are really two huge areas that have impacted and
Yeah,
changed over the last
absolutely. Yeah.
30 years.
So with that in mind, and really to start today's conversation around, I think network observability, I think, is something that a lot of people talk about, and they really don't really understand what network observability really means. So what is it, and why should we care? We've discussed a few things about how the network's evolved over the years, but let's talk specifically about observability and what does it mean to network admins? Why do they care about it? And why are they really getting involved and trying to understand their network in more detail?
That is a great question. And I think if you asked five people who sit in chairs like mine, or 10 people, you're going to get 10 different answers, 20 different answers. For
Mm-hmm.
me, network observability is about taking a lot of the metrics, a lot of the events, things based on packet data. That's it's all in the name of our company, cPacket, right? The spirit is it's really trying to focus on the essential elements of the network, which is the packet data itself. It's not just at some kind of high level, abstract level, etc. It's about trying to base it on the packets. And it's also not just trying to, shall we say, take the temperature of the
Right.
network, packet
Yep.
data or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's about trying to really look at the the holistic story for what's going on in the infrastructure, ideally trying to answer those four W's that I like to, the what, when, where, and why
Yeah.
of the infrastructure. As I say, it's not just about the temperature and that being a data point and yep, my temperature is 37 degrees or whatever it is, or maybe it's 41 and I'm not feeling very well. It's a little bit kind of just pure monitoring. It's about going to that next level to be able to really understand
And
what
what sort of,
is
I mean, what
happening.
sort of the amount of data are we talking about here? So, I mean, we talk about the speeds and the feeds going, aspect, but when you look at the network holistically, how much data are we really kind of manage and understand?
Well, in terms of the actual, shall we say, captures, right? I mean, we have the standard, the absolutely standard capture system is our 100S platform. We have the 200S as well, a little bit of a different technology, but 100S, 288 terabytes worth of data. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
capturing at 100 gig, that's that's going to fill up pretty quick, and you can extend that, etc. But this is vast amounts of data that network operations teams and security operations teams,
Yeah.
for that matter, have to be able to dig through. And
Yeah.
the idea is to use tools that are going to really highlight where those issues are. As I say, it's not just about temperature readings, and I'm using that in the kind of the health sense as opposed to your CPU temperature. But the point is to try and say, well, how are we going to really understand what's going on to answer those four W's
Okay.
as we go forward? So for me, network observability is about kind of the next generation from kind of NPM, network performance monitoring, very much like that temperature checking.
Sure.
Observability is trying to go past that. It's trying to look at those metrics. It's trying to add in other potential data sources as well as the fundamental packet data
Yeah.
itself to help you on that four W's journey.
Yeah, and I look at it like, if you look at a typical network, you may have trillions of packets going on in the course of a day.
Oh, yeah.
Within those packets, you've got billions of sessions and connections going on between servers and endpoints. And each one of those, billions of sessions in the course of the day, there may only, you're going to have problems. You're going to have connectivity issues. You're going to have small things. Now, a lot of the times, those will recover automatically. The protocols are built in to allow that. But really, as your network expands, and you get what you've got a few issues in there that need to really be kind of root caused and understand what goes in there. And that's just within a local area network. What happens when you start going to remote workers, cloud work, cloud environments? More companies are pushing more and more data, and services out into a cloud hosted environment. How do you get insights into a lot of what's going on there, and how do you fault find those networks when really you're buying a network as a service from the likes of Google or Azure or AWS? So really, for me, a lot of the observability isn't just kind of down and what's going on between these two computers. It's really what's going on in my overall network in total.
I think you highlighted something really important there, Andy, actually, to be honest. The idea of networks have also evolved. You asked what had changed. The idea of the kind of the hybrid network is a really important fact in many businesses today,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, even in our personal lives, we're using things on the local computer possibly, or we're pushing
Yeah.
out to using, Gmail, or we're using some other kind of cloud-like service, etc. The idea of hybrid is really important to us. If I go to a business context, I'm using services which are in my environment. I'm using services which are remote, etc. And all of that needs to be working together. And I think that the comment you made about the idea of networking as a service,
Yep.
that's a benefit in the sense of you can work
Costs and
with a cloud
overheads and all
partner,
those
things
kind
like
of
that.
things. Yeah.
But on the flip side, if your network is truly critical to your business's success,
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of, shall we say, pushing that responsibility to
Yeah,
someone else. And
absolutely.
that's actually
Yeah.
quite dangerous in
Yeah.
itself. Not dangerous, maybe a bit
Yeah.
word, but the point
It's
is
it's a it's a
that the network,
vulnerability. Yeah.
yeah, it's a vulnerability because the network isn't guaranteed to always be there. which once again is a little bit of a contentious subject, to be honest. I've
Absolutely.
spoken to many customers. I mean, you've just come back from a trade show yourself, and I'm sure there were people there who are like, yeah, everything's in the cloud. I don't need to worry about it. It's going to be out there.
Yeah.
But actually, if you kind of delegate the responsibility for that infrastructure entirely to a service provider, that may be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah,
And that's
absolutely.
something that you should be thinking about more closely.
So, okay, so with that in mind, then, so I mean, realistically, observability is obviously key to people fault finding and things. But really, what are the real focuses? What are the kind of three things that people are really looking at solving when they implement, observability? So obviously, we've listed a whole lot of different things that we can do with it in different environments. But kind of what are they really focused on for kind of the three top bullet points?
Well, that's an interesting one. As I say, the kinds of organizations that we work with at cPacket tend to be these very large kind of organizations, and they have very unique and different ideas for what they're trying to achieve. But trying to boil it down a little bit, the idea is ultimately health.
Yep.
It's the health of the network, not just the temperature probe, so to speak, but it's the idea of really looking at the whole system, like that holistic, it's like a holistic approach to understanding the health of the network. Now, hopefully you don't have any of those four W's, the what, when, where, why, when things go wrong, but it will happen. That's the kind of the exciting part of computer networking. So the point is, it's really about health. That's the absolute core thing. Also, more than health, it's about being able to go back in time and really look back at what did happen. What did happen on Saturday, so to speak,
Sure.
when you hopefully had the weekend off. You can roll back in time, right? And then the last piece, I think, is really trying to be able to communicate that clearly and easily to multiple layers in your organization. Because when, unfortunately, things go wrong, if you just use jargon and complicated words, it's very hard to explain it, right? You've got to be able to boil it down. Simple dashboards, whatever it might be, being able to go back and replay things to double check, etc. You've got to be able to bring it back. The days of just looking at, shall we say, hexadecimal captures off the network, which I'm sure we all loved to do back in the day, that is great, right? But there are lots and lots of other people in those organizations, in these NetOps teams, SecOps teams, who aren't quite as familiar with all of that technology. So therefore, that's another huge aspect that people are trying to answer.
Yeah, so we could almost say it's your mean time to resolution is crucial for a lot of these guys. They're really trying to, they can't afford to put 5 guys searching through PCAP files looking for bit errors or problems within that. Obviously, reducing the downtime is crucial. If your network's down, your services are down, you're paying people to sit around basically waiting for services to come back up. But yeah, I think really a lot of it is, there is an investment in observability. You have to buy equipment, you have to put services, you have to put trained staff. So it's also about that return on the investment. The sooner you can get to that resolution, the sooner that investment pays for itself. So I think that was really useful kind of overview, I think, from a network observability level. Again, it's great to discuss these kind of topics, and I'm sure we're going to talk about lots of other useful things in the coming weeks. So with that, let's wrap up there, and I want to thank everybody for watching. This has been Andy and Ian. We're talking network observability. So I'm Andy.
And I'm Ian, and have a great day.
Thank you. Goodbye.